Let's start with this announcement by another announcement by the Treasurer today, Josh Frydenberg. Basically, the banks are being unshackled, going to make it easier for people to be able to get credit. What's your view of this?
Look, in general, anything that's going to help stimulate the economy is a good thing. I mean, these are rules that Labor put in place, allies in government, following the global financial crisis and the general acceptance that banks had behaved badly. And I am confused because it's not like their record over the last 10 years has been pristine. We've had a Royal Commission, we've had charging fees to dead people, we've had, $1.3 billion just yesterday agreed to be paid by, I think, Westpac, Austrac as fines for failure to properly police their anti-money laundering laws. So the banks will need someone to be keeping a strict eye on them, but the economy does need stimulation or stimulus, and we're seeing that. So in general, a positive, but I'd really want to make sure banks weren't given a complete free hand, because they have demonstrated over the last 10, 15 years that they can't be trusted.
Well, the Finance Minister on the show earlier, he said systems are in place to be able to push back on the banks, I suppose, to not be able to just give out credit willy-nilly. But I suppose there is the danger that pressure will be taken off the banks now, and people could, and businesses could also fall into debt traps.
Well, that's right. One of the key issues around lending is you're irresponsible if you loan money to people who ultimately can't make the repayments. And there was a lot of examples in the Royal Commission and other investigations about banks not doing proper checks, just literally doing tick and flick without examining the capacity to repay. So those are really core parts. I mean, it will take a few years for this to blow up if it goes wrong. But in the short term, the economy needs stimulus.
Well, and Janita Warren was on the show just a short time ago, and she said that the system that was in place following the commission was too restrictive. So people couldn't get credit. Businesses couldn't get credit. So it seems as though something had to be done. And for the most part, I can see the reaction this morning is the majority of people do support this decision.
Yeah, as I said, we've got to set aside some of the rules. We've got to change some of the settings if we want the economy to grow.
Yeah.
We can't tax cut our way to getting out of this. We need the economy to grow. And we need people to have confidence to borrow, to spend. And if this helps create that environment, then yes, providing we've got the proper supervision and the proper ability to punish the banks if they behave badly again.
And well, the Jobseeker Supplement is wound back today. JobKeeper is wound back on Monday. What are you expecting here? I mean, the government has always said it was a temporary measure. Couldn't go on forever. Can't afford it.
But they made those statements when they were talking about snapback. I mean, they got themselves in a mess. They just threw this phrase snapback out there. This is here for 6 months.
Which they changed
so
quickly, though.
Snapback. They did change, but March is not the time to start pulling money out of the economy. We are in the depths of the worst recession since the Second World War. And you don't stimulate growth, you don't create jobs by pulling money out of the economy at the bottom. You've got to wait till you're on a firmer footing. Now, there is nobody predicting that in 6 months' time, in March, that we are going to be, back to where we were. That's when you start to withdraw money from the economy. This is money that people desperately need. They've lost their jobs and they're clinging to hope that the job might be there. This will be a real body blow. Yes, they designed the system poorly. There were some important changes that they've made, and there are important changes that they're making going forward next week. But the fundamental position that, there's this arbitrary date that you can just pull the money away and everything's snapped back and everyone will be fine. It's just not the real world. I mean, there are some days I despair that the Prime Minister and Treasurer actually don't seem to know anything about an economy.
Let's just close, Stephen, on Dean Jones. It's our top story. It's top story everywhere this morning. It's a sudden shock. He was only 59 years old. He'd gone for a jog in India, came back and collapsed and passed away. I tell you what, it's It's a reminder to go and get your health checks and take nothing for granted.
Dino was a fabulous Victorian, and he was, a sensational batsman, a great character, raconteur. He was very straightforward. He told you what he thought, and he is a great loss to the Australian cricketing community and family.
Well, I mean, it's great. It's interesting that you say raconteur because, I mean, he kind of was, in a sense, the Shane Warne type rascal before Shane Warne came along.
Look, no one can rival Warney, but Dino was certainly someone who had character, and really you knew you were in the presence of a great man.
Yeah.
From all the people I've spoken to that met him over time.
Yeah, I mean, I never got the chance to meet him, but as a young cricketer myself, I used to come out with the zinc along the bottom lip, and just to try and copy Dino. He was that exciting, He was the first of that kind of exciting, swashbuckling batsman to come along in one-day cricket before, the likes of Adam Gilchrist.
All that have followed. No, Dino set the standard. I mean, he really tore apart and remodelled and remade limited over cricket.
Yeah.
I think I heard you earlier say, God, can you imagine him playing T20?
Yeah.
It would have been a sight to behold.
It sure would have been. Stephen Conroy, always good to talk. We'll chat to you again soon. Have a good weekend.
You too.